be talking about Excel docs. Just a quick introduction. My name's Matthew. I'm a customer success manager here at Juice. We have Justin, Keith, and Todd on with us today. I'll let them introduce themselves.
Hi, Keith, Justice, CEO of Juice Technologies. Thank you for joining us.
Justin Alfiero, digital marketing specialist. Hopefully I didn't interrupt you right there, Keith. My bad.
No, you're good.
Hi, everyone. Todd Justice, Chief Technology Officer, and I'll be doing the demo for Excel Docs today. Of course, after, right, Matthew, they have any questions?
Yes.
If anybody has brought any questions. I just have to close my door.
Yep. So, just to give some, feedback to you guys. If you have any questions to start the meeting, we'd be happy to answer any questions you guys might have. Just to keep it orderly, if you do have a question, we do ask that you raise your hand with the reactions in Zoom. If you rather ask the question over chat, feel free. We could have Justin monitoring the chat and he will be able to answer you on there. And if you could try to keep the questions to be Quickbase add-ons related, that would be appreciated as well. But to open it up, open the floor, if anyone has any starting questions, please go ahead. Now is the time. If not,
and again, just to jump in, question can be on anything. We chose Excel Docs. We like to have a tip or like a little spotlight topic that we call it. But this is really for you. So if you came here, you have some questions about any one of our add-ons, about us in general, please feel free. We're going to start off with asking you, answering your questions, and then when there's time at the end, we'll go through our topic.
And of course, as we go through the tip, if that prompts questions, please ask away.
Absolutely. That's a good point, Todd. If something's tricking you up or if you're trying to follow along with us, just halt us where we are. We're happy to go into further detail. Might have heard someone trying to talk there. Well, I would say that everyone's eager to learn more about Excel Docs, Todd.
Okay, great.
So like I mentioned, we're going to be talking about filling your custom Excel spreadsheet with Quickbase data. And Todd's going to be able to go through that with you guys. As many of you who have Excel Docs know, subtables are a key portion of this, and we do get many questions on it. So hopefully today we'll shed some light on how you can utilize this tool further. So Todd, I will stop the share and you have the control.
Okay. All right. How's that, Matthew? Good?
Do not see your screen. There you go.
All right. Good. Okay.
Perfect.
All right. So what I'd like to do is take you through setting up the template records, right, for Excel Docs. So the assumption is you already have Excel Docs installed inside your application. And what I'll do is we'll take a template, and I'm going to show you that in a second. Actually, I could just pop that up. We want to take an Excel template, such as this one, this expense statement, right? We want to fill it, okay? And I actually outlined. I'm going to have a little picture here. So what we're taking this template, and I literally downloaded this template off of the internet, and and then we took a look at it, and so we molded a demo. We molded a demo for application around the template, say, just so we can show some good information. And I'm outlining, what we want to fill, meaning, we have project name, number, and some static data, some header type information, but then we have detail information regarding expenses, for the project. So what employee is involved in the expense, and all the different details on that, hotel expenses and fuel and meals, etc. So, and I'll show you the Quickbase app in a second, but I just wanted to show you what we're trying to achieve, and like I said, this kind of maps it out. We have static data, almost like header information from the project, and then from a subtable, of expense details. We're going to list it out in a report format right down here in all of these rows here. And the nice thing about Excel docs, if we go back to the template, right now we're looking at the template itself in Excel, is, you may have calculations and formulas, etc., already set up like this template does. We're going to preserve all that, obviously. So we're just going to fill it with data and let Excel do the rest. Okay, so that's the template. And let me now, so I'm going to go to our site, juicetech.com, right? I'll click this icon, get me quickly over to the demo. So this page has quite a bit of info on Excel docs and all the different things you can do. Obviously, I'm not going to hit everything that it could do. And if you have questions, certainly ask away, but I want to at least take you through a setup, setting the template up, the records in the tables. So, so here's the app projects, and then there'll be expenses as well, line items. So when I'm going to go to a project record, so this is a project record, and this is the tab that I'll be working in. We actually, in the demo app, we have many tabs set up for this project record to show all the different types of use cases you might have for Excel docs. So you can play around with those and see what it can do. Obviously there's an install that gets done, and these two tables will get set up inside the app upon installation. Document templates, all right, and document subtable Excel, right? So master and dependent. So the document templates is the master, subtable Excel is the dependent table. And, so basically you're going to create and set up the template, and then any detailed type data you need contained within that document, like I showed you, will be defined in this table. And I'll take you through that. So let me do a new document template, and I'm going to cheat a little bit because I have, in the interest of time, I already have a lot of this. I'm just going to kind of cut and paste. And I'm going to explain as I paste in here. So we're going to set up the employee expense template, right? Now, there's a few different fields obviously defined here on the document template layer. And by the way, Justin, if you could post in the chat the link to our help site. This is straight to Excel docs. This way people have that to potentially look along and refer to, right? The C list. So obviously it's just the name of the template or the document template, and then the C list, I'm going to paste in as well. The C list is a set of cell locations and field IDs. Justin, I actually have a link also to C list. If you can post that as well.
I believe I just did.
Okay, good. All right. So in the C list, we're actually defining the cell. It's cell location B6 and field ID. All right. So if I bring up my Excel sheet again, I'm putting data in B6, right? B6, and I'm going to put field ID 6 in there, and then B7 is my project number, and that's going to be filled with field ID 7, and so on, right? So we're gonna use this notation, which is cell location : field ID dot cell location : field ID dot cell location : field ID. So that's kind of how you build out the C list, which is a column list, and I think I have some help in there. Next, we're going to choose our template, which is the one I showed you. So that's that one. We're gonna call this, and this is free form. This is just going to be projects. So we're taking the information in the which is going to be contained in the header of that sheet from the projects table. I just need the DBID as well. So this is the table DBID. So this is more free form, the master table name, but this is it has to be exact. So this is the, if I hover over this, this is the actual master table, the project table DBID. Now, since we can put data on any tab we'd like, that's why we have this Excel sheet number, and I'm just going to put tab 1, right? So we're just going to put on the first tab, right? There's another option for PDF pages. I'll go over that in a little bit, but we're not going to PDF anything right now. Right, so I'm going to just save this. And now we're going to, so now we have the header info defined. Now we're going to define, so now I have, like I said, let me bring up the template. I have these fields defined already, right? Coming from the projects table. And now I want to define my grid of data right here. All right, so again, same tab, but so I have to add, I'm going to click this button, add document subtable Excel. Right, so we're going to add this record, and again, free form. This is going to be our expense sheet details. Right, the DBID of the table, important, obviously. Again, and that would be our, I think it's expense. Yeah, here it is. It's the expense sheets. So that's what this, it's projects and expense sheets. I think I mentioned line items. That's incorrect. So this is our subtable, right? So there's the DBID. Now the C list, again, the nomenclature is cell location, colon field ID, cell location, colon field ID, right? And I'm starting at the row A12 that I want to begin my subtable at. So here's A12. So A12, B12 is the account, C12 is the employee. So that's what this line is actually telling us. Again, cell location, colon field ID from that expense sheets subtable.
Todd, why do you have a D in front of the 6?
Okay, so this is an additional item that we can actually embed inside. It's not required; it's optional. But this is actually saying that the format this as a date. Let's see that first. Yeah, the first column is a date. Now it's not required, so I was going to stay away from it. We didn't really need it. I actually pasted it in, but it will tell you, and this is in the help site. It'll actually let you define the cell itself. Now, Excel lets you define the cell also. So you can say, oh yeah, this column B is general or currency, or I think I have them all as general here. But you can sort of override this Excel definition with these. And again, it's in the help that goes a little bit more in depth. You might also use that when you're embedding an image. And again, that's in the help site. It would be a dash I. And again, that's in the help. And okay, put a 6 there. Okay, so now that we defined the C list, okay, and again, the nomenclature, we're starting in row 12, so we're saying, yeah, when we issue the query, and we're going to return multiple rows, but we're going to start in row 12, A12, and fill down the sheet. Sorting S list, that's what this S list is, sort list. So we're going to sort by date. Options. Justin, I actually have another link. If you could post that all in the chat. It goes through these different items here, especially the query, because when you set up a query, I'm going to fill in the query right now. When you fill in the query, right, this is Quickbase syntax to make a call to the subtable. It says, go to the related project field and pop in, okay, and pop in RK. Let me explain what that means in a second, actually. But if Justin will post the Quickbase API documentation for all of these options here, so that you know, because this is all Quickbase related in order to pull data. All right. And ST list is subtotal. If we want a subtotal, we could actually, we're not going to do that. We're going to let Excel do all that work, because you can let the template do as much work as possible. But we do have an option in here to subtotal. All right. So again, C list is our columns. S list is what are we sorting by. Options is a Quickbase, again, Quickbase nomenclature for, you know, maybe I want to just sort in a special order, etc. Those options are in Quickbase documentation. And the query says, go to my related project and pull data. And I'm going to go through what I mean by RK in a second. ST list, subtotal, we're not going to do that. Tab sub report order. This is another option we have in here. So often, oh, not often, but it happens from time to time. Customers want to embed a series of reports of data, one under each other. And that's what you can do with this sub report order. For instance, if I query and I add a whole set of data into the Excel sheet, then I want to go query another set of data and put that right under the first set. So you could actually say, this would be the first set, this would be the second set. So you can actually define, going right down the spreadsheet, all the queries and have them union, almost like back up against each other, or stack up on top of each other, right down the Excel sheet. It's not necessarily a common thing to do, but it's an option that we've had to build in for customers. A lot of our, you know, we do take a lot of input from customers and requests. So these are the kind of things that come up from time to time. So they're here. They're not necessarily going to be used all the time, but I want to explain why they're here. So next thing we're going to do here is we're going to say max line items 10. Now, if we look at the spreadsheet, there's 10 lines here, right? In this sub report. So there's 10. And what we're saying is when you get to 10, do something else. And that could be insert more rows down the page, which is fine. We'll do that, and we'll preserve all the subtotaling and all the formulas that are already here, or insert a new tab. You know, so let's say, all right, so after 10, copy the first tab, create another tab, and start on that tab and start going down the page. So we're going to do that. Skip rows. So the query, you could say, skip every other row, and it'll actually, you'd actually go 12, 14, 16, 20, 18. So you can actually say skip 2, and it can do that as well. Again, not always used, but available and can be handy. So the only other thing we need to do, so we're going to be on sheet 1, right? The only other option here that I want to check is data grid. So this says when you query the data here and you grab all the expense sheets, put it in a data grid. So if this wasn't checked, all it would do is return the first row. And again, it can be handy in certain circumstances to just return information one row or one record. But in this case, we're not. We want a data grid. So we're going to check this data grid. Each record is tab. I'll show that example in a second. Meaning basically every expense sheet goes on a separate tab in the Excel sheet. We're not going to do that right now for this example. So here we go. So I'm pretty much defined as far as all the parameters that I needed. Now let me go actually, since I came back to my template record, and I want to show you the query has the RK in it. Okay, so what this means is when I issue my subtable query to get expense sheet details, I want to related. So I want to use 18, field 18, which is the related project. And I want it to go and pull data for every project that every project record, right? So on the master, if you notice here on the project master record, I'm actually defining the RK. So we allow you to not only put in cell location field ID, but we allow you to create variables, right? So we're saying RK, it could be whatever you want. I actually defined some other ones just to show you the fact that it can be, it's alpha colon the field ID. So in this case, I'm saying RK, so I know related key. And that's 3. So that's the record ID. So again, when I query to get my project, I want to use, so not only am I going to take the project number, name, date, etc., and pop that into the header or the master record, right? I also want to get the related data, but I want to use what I returned from the project in a sort of like a hidden variable, RK, in my query down below when I go and grab all my expense sheets that are related to the project. Okay, so hope that wasn't too confusing, but it's actually a neat option because, you know, in AA I'm putting the project number, which is field ID 7. And so I could actually change this query, and I will in a second just to show you that I could just use this variable or BB, whatever. So I think now the only other thing to do, this is our template ID 36 that we just defined, right? I'm just going to go back to my project record to run this. So if I go back to my button, which is right here, so the button which will generate this Excel sheet what gets installed into the app as part of the installation. So there are a few parameters, and you know, in the interest of time, I'm not going to go through all of them right now. I can if you want to, but you know, all this is laid out in help as far as what goes behind the button. But I just wanted to show you the definition of the template and details. So now I'm going to just run, and hopefully this is going to work. So I'm going to run that sheet 30 that template definition record, if you will, to generate my Excel sheet. All right. And here comes the hope. Okay, so it's over on my other screen. Okay. So here it is. So it generated. So obviously you put in all the header info, you know, that we defined, and it started to fill in 12, right down to 21, right? It hit 10, once it hit 10, it said, oh, what do you want me to do? Well, I want you to put it on the next, add a new tab. So that's why it carried over to the next page, right? You know, and then obviously all the subtotaling, all this still applies. I mean, all these Excel formulas, we didn't do anything with them. We don't affect them in any bad way. You know, they would just kind of, and that's the nice thing about the custom, the title in the topic was custom sheet, because you can bring whatever sheet you want when we just fill it. And some of our customers have come up with some real interesting use cases for Excel docs. So it's very cool to see. And let me show you, I want to show you another example of just maybe if I go back to my document template, I want to just show you if I chose, instead of new tab, right? If I just said, don't do new tab, do new rows, So instead of adding a tab, fill it with 10, but then start adding 11 and 12 right down the spreadsheet. And I'll just show you that it, you know, in this example, it's probably a better use of the expense sheet anyway. So now, if we look at it, we should see one tab. This is the template, keeps coming up, comes over on this. So we're going to see one tab, right, with all the 12 here, right? So these, it's used to stop at 21, right? Now it's going 22, 23, and it's pushing. So it's pushing all the data from that sheet down the page, including, and Excel is nicely recalculating or recalibrating, when it needs to total, et cetera. So, again, this is probably a better use case instead of new tabs for an expense sheet, so we could see the real totals right on one sheet. Okay, so that's what the new rows versus insert rows versus insert new rows versus insert new tabs. Okay, and now I'm just going to stop a second, only because I want to show some more options, but I don't want to go too far without potentially taking any questions. Or Matthew, what do you think?
Yeah, Todd, I think this is a great point to ask. Does anyone have any questions about what you just saw? That is a very well demonstrated creation of that subtable. I mean, that laid it out for me. I think I got good help from that.
I have a question. This is Rich.
Hey, Rich.
Yeah, Rich.
On going to your SC list up at the top there, when you have a D, like for the B6 colon, and you had put a D in front of it.
Yes.
On, I see, I'm looking at your help page here, and it has a negative sign or a hyphen.
Yeah.
Explain that.
Good question, Rich. You picked up. So I allow it both ways. This really isn't standard. This really, we should do, like you said, it should be the hyphen. So this is sort of in there in prior releases, when I sort of came up with, hey, I shouldn't do it that way. I should be consistent. And then I did my own example with my old nomenclature, which I shouldn't have done, which is confusing. So good point, Richard. And you don't have to use that. I would say follow the help docs, and that's going to be a better way to look at it. Because you know why? In the help docs, right? I think I show, I'm just going in now. I think I show an example of okay, so hyphen D, right? So, it's really K6 hyphen D, right? Colon 104, right? And the reason why I bring this up is because for images, it wouldn't, like if this was an image, this wouldn't work. It only works for D, like a D. But if this was an image, you'd follow the help, do the -I. And that's a powerful, option too, to embed images in spreadsheets. So if you have a file attachment field, say B6, right? We want to put an image, and say field 6 was a file attachment field. This would be the right way to define, in that cell location, B6, put an image from my file attachment field ID 6. That's like I said, that is the better way to define that, and that's a holdover sort of option there that I should have corrected, but I didn't.
And Todd, I do just want to interrupt just 1 second, because Laura also has a question in the chat. I'll ask it for her if she doesn't want to talk. It's a little shy, very understandable. Does the data type of a field have to match the data type of the cell/column the data is being pushed into?
No, it doesn't. So that's a good question, Laura. So it doesn't have to. And that's why we sort of leave the template as general, because often, Excel will be okay. So, so here's a great example, actually. These cells have been defined as accounting, right? Often there's general, right? Count, date. This is a date already, actually. This is defined as date. But because I'm using the Excel definition, I can just drop data in and it should pick it up, no problem. And that hyphen D isn't necessarily required in my A12 because it's already defined as date. So if you do define it in Excel, you don't have to worry about your C list. Just dump fields out in the dot notation and it'll work fine. But it is handy to use the Excel because it makes it much more professional too. the accounting gives it some nice options. So if the number was net, the negative, I think it might show in red. So there's some cool things that using the Excel. And again, the C list would just be putting a number out, putting the field ID, cell location field ID. That's it.
Yeah, I think,
Just Tom Peters, I got a question.
Yeah, sure, Tom.
I'm looking at my screen that I get when I log in to the Juice website to, build a document. And it basically gives me a different screen than what you're showing. You've got Excel related is, subsections, and then package builder. I'm getting document, subtotal, and Excel doc. Is something different or needs to be upgraded or what?
Well, we took the liberty of sort of laying this form out, more specifically for, when people get here, Tom. We try to make it more evident, but yours is fine as long as you know where where your subtable Excel section is, etc.
Right. Okay. So yeah, I can go into add document subtitle, and
Well, let me jump in here. You
Yeah.
probably have Exact Forms Plus as well as Excel Docs, correct,
Yep.
Tom?
Yep.
Right.
Okay.
So when we originally, depending upon what we set up first in your app, might
Okay.
drive a little bit about how
Right.
you see things
yeah,
on your
I think we
document
did
template.
docs first, and then we added Excel.
Exactly. So you're going to see a document subtables, and that's used for Exact Forms Plus. And then you should see a document subtable Excel, and that's where you handle your subtables for Excel. So each one of those
Okay.
tables is different. So we use one for Excel and we use one for Exact Forms Plus. So just
Yeah.
make sure that both of them are visible on there. And
Yep, they
one
are.
thing you can do too is you can add a field to your document templates table and say, this is an Excel type as opposed to a Word, an Exact Forms Plus type, and then you can hide and show through form rules those subtables just so it's a little bit clearer if you want. It's again, it's customizing that document templates table a little
Yeah,
further.
I was just more curious if there was something missing on here. It didn't look like there was, but they're named different. And then what's
Yeah.
packet builder?
Package builder. I don't even know why that's here, honestly. That's another add-on. We may have copied this table over from another app key.
Yeah, when we install the package builder in clients' applications, there's a couple of additional fields that we add to the document templates table. So we take advantage of the document template and table for a couple of different add-ons. Not only so Exact Forms Plus, Excel Docs, and we also use it for the package builder.
So package builder would be to put out a Word document and an Excel document in a packet?
Actually, yes, you could do that because then you can the package builder is an engine, and what it does is it fires off different add-ons based on the sequence and how you want to create the documents. So if you wanted to create a Word document first and then an Excel document second and maybe another PDF third, package builder controls that. So instead of firing them off individually, package builder says, okay, I'm going to set myself up to do that for you.
Yeah, Tom, if you want, Matthew, we might be able to do a quick little demo of that as well. So I don't know about
Yeah, no, that's
timing.
interesting. That because
Yeah.
I do have situations where we, print one and then print the other and then put it all together in one PDF.
Yeah.
And so.
Yeah, that's a great use case for it. Absolutely. We also have so we have other options for that as well, Tom. We have what we call the merger, which can merge PDFs,
I've read on that
Excel, Word, etc., all together with one button click. So we do have different options for you.
Okay.
For that.
Yep.
I just want to make sure that before if we do a demonstration on that, I just want to address a couple questions in the chat real fast. So Todd, I'm going to ask, starting with Laura, has another question. Would the date format of an application carry through to Excel, or does it need to be reformatted?
So that's a good question, Laura. The date format in Excel should override when you put that date into this cell. And then, I had to look at, I'm not real great at Excel here. I'd have to look at how I define, let me see if it'll come up. How I define date. Okay, so I think I'm doing this. Obviously, there's different options for the way you might want to format that cell.
I guess the question comes into play, which is how Quickbase stores the date versus how it renders the date may be different. And
Right.
so how it comes out in CSV format, like if I download to my Excel is default to American dates.
Okay.
But when I always have to mess around with it when I'm doing imports to fix it. But
Right.
I'm just wondering whether it's just this oddball scenario. I have a UK client, and you know, if this was something they'd be interested in, then that would be a big question for me, which is, will the dates come out correctly?
Yeah, now that's a great, and again, I'm just typing in like, you know, like a date, right? And, you know, so that could simulate or emulate data coming from the API. It once it's in, it changes it based on what
Right.
Excel says it should be. Because that format is already defined. So
I'd like to point out real quick too, on dates in Excel, you can go in and customize your date format so you can make it look any way you want.
right.
Mhm.
Yes.
Good
That's,
point.
yeah, and that's a nice thing with Excel. Like you know, Excel will sort of give you that richness that you would need when it comes to this reporting. Yeah.
So going at the Excel, you know, obviously a long set of embedded records in Excel is not a problem. How does then the PDF side of it work in terms of pagination and all that really difficult stuff?
Okay. Yeah, good point. So let's see. So I'm going to take this back to tabs so that it'll create multiple tabs. Because what it'll do, what PDF will do is it'll take each tab and create a sheet, a separate page. So let me go, if I go back to my record, so all I did was change insert new tab, because now it's going to be multiple tabs, and I'm going to go back to my record, my project record, and I have a button already set up for generating a PDF, so I'm going to do that. So this will stream back to, stream back to the browser, right? And didn't work right, did it? Something wrong, let me see.
So is that the reason that you put the tab functionality in there, is to allow the outputs to become multi-pages?
Yeah, that's one, but we can also use we actually can generate, we have options to generate separate tabs as well, which I can show you. So let me get I think I just closed my screen. So
I think that button was still pointed at template 17, not your new one.
oh, that's a good point. Let me just pull this, back over. So we go back to the record. Yeah, I think I messed up that template.
You got to remove your JavaScript.
Oh, hell.
You know, it's just
It's just the
comment.
comments. Yeah, you just got to
Comment.
delete it out of the comment.
It doesn't like that.
Yeah, it doesn't realize that it's a comment, and it still gives you that warning.
Okay, let's
It's
see.
annoying.
Yeah.
All right, so okay, here we go. So see, Laura, so it will generate for every tab a separate page in the
Right.
PDF. You know, and the other option we have also is you know, you have the option to say, let me go back to that template record again, 36, right? You could say, well, just PDF page 2, right? So let me just, so I want a PDF, but I only want a PDF page 2. So let's go back to the project record and click this again, and it's just going to do those 2 records on that second page. So you know, you could do, you know, PDF 1, 3, 1 dash 10, whatever. So you have the option to PDF whatever pages you want also. I mean, since you brought it up, I figured I'd mention it. So that's another.
I'm trying to think of when you might do that, but
Yeah.
a follow-up then, if you don't mind me interrupting other people's questions, is can I set the Excel, like how would I know if I generated a multi-page PDF, how would I be able to paginate document like you can in Word with page 1 of X? Can you do that with Excel with this tab format that you've set up? Or is that an enhancement you guys are now going to go dig
no, I
around?
think, so you're talking about, so Excel, I don't have the example, but Excel can do a nice, like you said, pagination. And so as we fill the pages, you know, it'll actually, I don't have an example, I may have an example, but it will automatically create new pages, and then it'll PDF the way that way as well. So let me, I think I might have an example of that. So let's see. I'm gonna run multiple sheets includes. All right.
Hey, Laura, just to, while he's looking that up, one of the reasons why you might not want to PDF a specific page is maybe you're dumping a lot of data from Quickbase into, let's say, a sheet that you really don't want to be, you know, maybe you're using that sheet as a data gathering sheet to, let's say, light up another sheet because you have formulas pointing at that other sheet. So the raw data sheet you might want to hide or not include in the PDF.
That's an interesting use case.
So sheets. So let me. So let's see. Generate weekly timesheets. You know what? Multiple.
So if you,
sorry,
I'm just, so one of the things I'm thinking about is if you have, if you know you have more than 10 rows and 10 rows kind of fits nicely on a page based on the template that you have, which of course you'd have to figure out because that's how we do stuff. If you were to generate something that had multiple pages and you only wanted those boxes at the bottom to appear on what would probably be the last page, would you have to take a strategy of saying use template 1 for everything that is not is like page 1 and page 2 and page 3, and then use a separate template for the last one in order to get those boxes on the bottom and then merge them together?
That's an interesting way to do it. So it can be done that way. You're right. And yeah, and that's a little bit more, you know, involved. But I would say that there's potentially, and I'm not an Excel whiz, there's potentially a way to do that in Excel already. Keith, what were you going to say? You're going to say something?
No, no, I was just saying that I was going to add that it's planning. What you're trying to talk about, Laura, is you really have to plan ahead to kind of strategize for that. So
yeah, but you know, so interestingly enough, like Laura, we sometimes get these use cases that are more Excel side than say, you know, add-on side, if you will, like let the Excel do more of the heavy lifting in those regards. And we have like an expert on staff that we throw it at Danielle, and Danielle goes, oh yeah, here's the template. So
good to know. If
you have that kind of an example,
right,
I say send it our way.
Okay.
Because we can sort of go, oh yeah, this is the best way to approach that, Laura. So, you know, because we do often get these challenging cases, and Danielle's right on it. She's good. She's a whiz, and she creates us the template, goes, hey, use this template. And then we're doing, all Excel docs is doing is filling it.
Right.
The and then the spreadsheet takes off and does exactly what's needed. So I'd be interested to see that, because that's an interesting example. And then we can come up with some ideas for you. This is one that paginates, but it's only showing one.
Well, you've said that it can be done. It's just not oh, you just do this. It's a little bit more involved, but
Yeah, sometimes
I'm
it's
just
more.
thinking of some of the issues that I typically have had with EF Plus is the pagination of pages where you have more records than you typically might, and then everything goes on to a second page. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you want all the footer stuff on
Right.
that first page as well.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, I know what you mean. So yeah, that might be a little more of a challenge, but if you send it our way, I think we'll be able to come up with something for you, and then we can, definitely work with you on that. Absolutely.
If you don't mind me chiming in, I just want to make sure I did tell Rob that we were going to get to his question as well
Okay.
in the chat.
Yeah.
Rob was wondering if he's able to load data from a report rather than a table into his document.
So Todd, Rob and Lori actually both have similar questions. It
Yep.
seems like they're trying to use a control table in order to control the query. I believe that's something we talked about this morning. So it might be something worth having a discussion on.
Okay, so a control table versus a QID, is that?
Essentially, yes.
Okay. I'm trying to think. I don't have an example in the demo app.
Well, I'm not sure if it's a control table. I think
Yeah.
what the question is, they have a report,
Yeah.
like a list all report, and they don't want to put a query in. They want to use the report instead.
Right.
Can they do that?
The QID. I'm trying to think if we have QID, because
Like Courier can use QID to get a list
Yeah.
of records to fire
Yeah,
out
yeah.
individual
Mhm.
ones. Mm.
Exactly. So let me see. Okay. So you can, and we have a parameter. So Justin, I'm gonna pop. Oh, you know what? Let me just do this. I'll just pop it in the chat. I'm gonna put this in the chat. You know what? It's in the. I don't know where. Okay, I'm gonna put this. This is here's a link to the specifics on using the parameters to drive the button, to drive the button to generate the Excel sheet. And so there's an option called MSQRY, and you can put in the query, which is a report. So MSQRY equals 5 would be the query, the report number, right? So you Keith mentioned list all would be 1. You could do MSQRY equals 1. So yes, you can define the report and use that report definition vis-a-vis the MSQRY parameter. So that would go, if I just show you the formula, here we go, the formula URL. So instead of the MSID, which is saying, take this current record and run it, right? You can use MSQRY equals 5, and that would be the report to use.
And would you run that from any record because it's running from a query, not from the record you trigger it from?
So that's a good point, Laura. Now, you might have a control table. You might have a specific reporting table that would, although actually you're right, you're going to have to run from the table where this is defined. So yeah, you're gonna have to figure out right where and how that makes sense to initiate it from, right? Because typically you're going to be on a record.
The master table ID is defined on the template record. So like in this case, template number 16, whatever the master table that's defined on template number 16 is where that query would pull data from. Right, Todd? So if I did
Right.
MSQRY equals 1, it's going to do list all from the table that's from template number 16 where the master table is defined.
Exactly. So changing around, so obviously this isn't used that much. It is available to use. Using this DBID parameter might help so that you can define this on another table, on a control table, versus, you know, just running it off of a record, you know, from the projects table, as a for instance, right? So you could, as with a combination of the DBID and the MSQRY, you can run, you know, from that control table and actually utilize a report. And that's in the help. The definition of DBID, what that means, and the MSQRY. And, you know, if this gets a little bit, it's a little more advanced, which is fine, you know, we can help with that. You know, so if you,
I'm going to be completely honest. I did not think we could do that for Excel docs.
yes, yeah,
That is, you know, I might be misleading clients because I think I've had people ask me about that.
the QID, yeah, you can use a QID, yes.
Now, one thing I want to point out is I might have been wrong here. The DBID on this button is the table that is going to be associated to the MSQRY, not the one on the template. I think I was wrong there. Right, Todd? So
Right, because the TPID, so the TP DBID is the template DBID, and that's what this, that's what
Right.
this.
But the DBID is, let's say, the master
Right.
table. So if I want to run MSQRY equals 1, meaning list all report, it's going to be driven based on the table that's in the DBID or line 4 that Todd's highlighting there.
Right, right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now here's a question, and other people might have this question because I have this question. What if we said we wanted to use a report query here, but what if you wanted to use a report query on the subtable? So like you defined in the document subtable, and you defined a query to pull the, let's say, the child data or the item data. Could you use a report query for that? I know I might be stumping you. Sorry,
Yeah.
that just came to my head because I was like,
that's a good question. If
because I wonder how that would even filter though. Like even if I said on the items table, if it's the list all of the items,
yeah,
how would it know to
I
only
know,
pull
you're
the
right.
items for the master record?
You're right. That would be
It's a good question.
that would be a problem. So in this instance where you use an MSQRY, I don't think you'd have, I think you're just doing that to get a dump or a set of data, period. We're not going to have any kind of sub or related definition at all.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
which
The
is
definition,
which is entirely possible, right?
Mhm.
You don't, it isn't required to have, you know, I define record ID 36, right? This was not required, right? I just put it in because I wanted details. But so in the MSQRY, maybe you're not going to use a subtable.
But wouldn't you just use the query from the query from the report and put it in your query cell? So where 18 is equal to RK, that would be the same as the query that you would generate a report with?
Yeah, well, I'm not so sure that would work, but so you're saying use it in the QRY field?
No, I'm just saying that when you generate a report and you expand the URL, you get the query parameters.
Right.
So wouldn't you just take the query parameters from the report that you want to use and then use that as your query in this cell here?
You could absolutely. So that
but you'd have to include the RK, like what you have there, because you're pushing down a field from the master table, which is going to be defined into that RK.
Right.
So you'd still have to include that. So
Yeah.
you can use everything else that report expanded URL created. In addition, you'd add your master filter.
Yeah. So you may have to edit it a bit, but you could definitely use that as a starting point if it was somewhat more complicated of a query.
So basically what I'm hearing in answer to my question then is yes, it can be done, and there's multiple options to achieve it.
Absolutely.
Got it.
Yes.
It was very enlightening to get through all this and hear what was said.
Oh, good, great. And again, Rob, we're going to help if there's anything, you have questions on, certainly throw it our way, especially when it comes to templates, we can help with that as well. So.
Well, I would say this is quite productive. I'm going to kind of put us on a stop there, though. I think we do have a follow-up survey to come right after this. So if you guys could just stay in the meeting so that survey comes to you. I just want to say thank you all for everyone who participated today. We are doing this again next week at 2 p.m. So please join us again, and we'd be happy to discuss Excel docs in further detail then. And you could, of course, email support if you do have questions.